Hey guys, to help run the forums, host the website, and travel, we've introduced a universal service fee for in-depth coverage, including this video. My goal is to be unbiased and transparent. It's a privilege to serve you. This is not an endorsement. Let's get into it. Hey guys, we're hanging out in Seattle, Washington. There's the city in the background, and we're at Gasworks Park. I'm with the president and CEO of Rad Power Bikes?
Yeah.
Mike Radenbaugh, how's it going?
Good to see you today, Court. Yeah.
This is awesome. I've been having a blast riding around with you. A little bit wet today, but we've got these nice fenders, we got the lights and stuff. There's a lot to go through. We're looking at the RadCity Step-Thru, and I've got to tell you, we were riding around some pretty steep hills today, and the motor's performing great. I'm gonna get into some of the specs, but before I do, I've reviewed this bike in the past. I really like it. It's very approachable, but it's also like robust. It's sturdy, and a couple of things have changed for 2019. I just wanted to highlight those starting off. So they have this nickel-plated 11-tooth to 34-tooth DNC freewheel. Really nice, like a much bigger sprocket for climbing. That's really been nice. We've got the integrated rear light versus battery powered. That flashes, very cool. That's something I don't see on hardly any electric bikes. Most of the time it's just like always on or always off. And it has this brake integration. Can you pull the brake levers, Mike? Check this out, right? It goes bright and it goes solid, and that's even if the lights aren't turned on. So it's a really cool design, and he's trying to get like solid. There it is. I'm really impressed with that because safety is a big deal to me, and their tires have been upgraded too. So we've got like puncture protection, K-shield, along with those reflective sidewall stripes. It comes in two colors, only one size for the Step-Thru, which, you know, is very approachable. And I actually have this pannier over here. I got my laptop in there. I've been cruising around gathering specs, and instead of trying to swing your leg over like that, you could just step right through. One of the trade-offs with Step-Thru electric bikes especially is that, you know, you do have some extra weight, and there can be some frame flex, like that torsional flex as you're riding, especially if you start to put a bunch of gear and cargo on that rear rack. But they've done a good job to negate that by putting this little surround piece, this tubing around the battery that connects the lower part, that wave frame. So I really like that. And look, it's really overbuilt, even with the down tube extending and then mounting there near the bottom bracket. I feel like they've done a great job. You'll notice that the kickstand is positioned pretty far out of the way in the rear. It's adjustable. It's mounted on the inside of that little tab. You're not gonna get heel strikes when you're pedaling. These are the things that I think about as a guy who's, I consider myself kind of average size. I'm 5'9", but I do have a longer inseam. It's like 30 inches. And so when I'm pedaling, I put the seat like way up, right? Especially on this bike. And what's the size on it? It's like 14.5 inches or something for the seat tube.
That's right, yeah.
And that's like right here. Can you lower that saddle or that, there we go. Look at that. Look at how low it gets. So it's extremely approachable for people who are a little bit more petite. Maybe we got the adjustable angle stem, the swept-back handlebars, the ergonomic grips. We got the Velo plush saddle with the handle built in. I like that. It's a lot of the same parts shared across the Rad Power lineup, including stuff like this. We've got the 12 magnet. That's a higher resolution, a little bit more sensitive cadence sensor, along with aluminum alloy guide. So you see there's a plate on this side and that side, so the chain isn't gonna fall off if you end up going off-road a little bit or some bumpy terrain. And it does have suspension fork. So it's just SR Suntour spring fork. It does have hydraulic lockout, which is nice. And then we've got preload. So if you're someone who's a little bit heavier, you can preload those springs and it's not gonna be as soft or mushy feeling. Or if you're just on smooth stuff like we are today, you can lock it out and you completely eliminate bobbing. I like that a lot. And these tires, they really are kind of an all-terrain tire. You could take this on a gravel path, or you could stay on the road and have it feel fairly efficient. It's not gonna be too loud. You'll notice that they're a little bit wider too. It's gonna give you some extra volume, and when you pair that with the upright riding position, the ergonomic touch points, and the suspension, it ends up giving you a great ride. I wanna call this out too. They've upgraded some of their branding. I think this little badge it's kind of nicer looking, and some of the logos and stuff. I'm focusing on the black bike, but I actually really like the pearlescent white that they've got going on because it's gonna stand out more. You've got that like larger visual footprint, a little bit more reflective. And they've added these like chevrons right here that are gray or kind of silver. So if you're getting on and you kind of kick the bike like I'm doing right now, it hides the marks much better than just pure white. So that was clever. I think they did a good job on that. Coming back to this seat post right here, 350 millimeters long. So you can see it does have plenty of room to rise up like that. 27.2 millimeters in diameter. And they do sell a suspension seat post option. So you can pay a little bit more and then you can get that like full suspension feel. Their battery pack was upgraded in 2018 like a lot. It's really high capacity. This is a 48 volt, 14 amp hour, 672 watt hour pack with Samsung lithium ion cells inside the 35E. So they're high energy density, about 7.7 pounds on that. You could take that off and charge it inside or bring it into work or something. It's also a good idea to take off if you're lifting the bike. The bikes do weigh a little bit more, but a lot of that weight's positioned low and center. This bike, the motor is a little bit heavier than on like the Rad Mini if you're comparing the two, because that one's also very approachable. They have a new Step-Thru and I'm reviewing that as well. That one has, it's like a Bafang internally geared hub motor. It's a little bit more compact looking, but it's wider because that's like a fat tire bike, just like the Rad Rover. This one, it's a little bit wider and it's gearless direct drive. It actually has regenerative braking. So as you're pedaling, if you pull the brakes, that sends a signal that the motor should cut off. And it actually, it kind of generates electricity by repelling the electromagnets inside. And I think that's a really cool feature because it does capture some energy and it also reduces wear on your brake pads. We got 180 millimeter brakes, disc brakes down here. And I guess this year they've got these like floating conical washers. So the brake won't rub as easily, and I guess the brake rotors are a little bit nicer too. They're supposed to be quieter. You'll notice there's a little torque arm back here. There's a lot of attention to detail on this. You know, in the old days, I think the Rad Rover dates back to like 2015, and it was like, hey, this is one of the original fat tire bikes that's like pretty affordable, and it was like value oriented. Now, because they're one of the leaders in the United States, they're really getting volume going, and in Canada, they're able to bring a lot of really nice parts, including these Ashendo headlights. These are the 60s, so I think it's like 60 Lux. These plastic fenders that are very durable, and they got the mud flaps and stuff, but they aren't rattling a whole lot. And we have tested that. I've been riding on different sections of the city. You know, they're pretty nice hardware. You compare that to like aluminum alloy or steel that could rust or get bent. They've made a lot of smart decisions, and some of it comes from riding around here in Seattle. Man, we saw a bunch of people on like rad wagons this morning just commuting to work, and it's like you get to see this in the wild. You ride this path every day when you ride to work.
Yeah. So we live and breathe on our bikes, and so the Step-Thru was kind of an extension of that. We were seeing the way people were using the RadCity, and accessibility was a big factor, like being able to get on and off, especially when you have maybe a big bag mounted on the back, right? So we have pizza delivery companies now with our insulated bags.
Yeah.
So a Step-Thru is a great bike for that application because it's hard to kick your leg over a pizza bag, but here you can just step right through. So the same thing with anyone with knee or hip stuff going on, or just
that's me.
A bike that you, or a bike you just want to be able to get on and off easier, but without losing the rad factor. Like that was the biggest piece for us. We didn't want to build a Step-Thru that we were not totally proud of. So making sure it was 750 watts, making sure that it had big tires, that was what it was all about for us.
I like that. You got the comfort. It's very durable, and you still got the little extras like the bottle cage bosses right there. I appreciate that. There's a pannier that's hooked to mine over here, and it's got reflectors built on, and it's waterproof, and you kind of need that when you're in Seattle. It's been spitting rain this morning, but it's well thought out. There's even like a little zipper right here. The quality is just, I guess what I'm trying to express here is that I've always thought like, hey, it's value, but the quality has really come up. I don't know if it's like you're just introducing more features and you're doing them well. I'll say it that way. I feel like that really fits. I want to call out the bosses that are on this rear rack. So he was talking about the different platforms they have. There's just tons of accessories on their website, and their website does a really good job of outlining all that too. So I think I've covered most of this. Mike, do you feel like I've missed anything before I jump into the display?
Yeah, no, I would just like to thank you and thank our customers, because a lot of these features are packed into these bikes because of the volumes and the standardization we're able to do. So
right.
Like that's a big thing for us, is we're able to pack the value in because we build so many of the same bike.
Yeah.
This has been a really popular model for us, which has been great, driving home that idea of like accessibility and getting more people on bikes. Yeah,
economies of scale. So you guys are building out bikes, you're making smart decisions. They've got the two different colors, but only one size. And that's what I was talking about before. It's like, I would like to be able to actually raise that seat a little bit higher personally, but you can buy a longer seat post, like a 450 instead of a 350 for $20 on Amazon or something like that. So there are ways to adjust this, and frankly, if you're really bigger, you might want to look at their high steps, because they do have a RadCity high step that comes in 2 different sizing. It's like 16 and 19 inches. So there you go. Let's jump into the display. Once the battery's charged and mounted, and by the way, 2 amp charger, it's 1.1 pounds, very compact and lightweight, so you could put it in your bag or whatever. So we got that charged up, it's mounted. I don't mean to skip this, because I think it's important with these batteries. It's so nice to be able to remove it, because if it does get extremely cold or hot, that can be a little bit tough on those lithium-ion cells. So I always just want to be thoughtful about that and then careful about how I lift it up. The batteries are $550 to replace, or you could get an extra, and that would fit in a bag too, so you could really extend your range. It's a high capacity. You're maybe not going to get quite as efficient range on like, you know, a gearless direct drive hub motor. It does weigh a bit more. It's like 12 pounds, Mike?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Can you tip the bike that way on the kickstand? So I do want, and I also want to say there's some cogging. So it spins fairly efficiently, but that's the magnetic resistance that's inside that contributes to regenerative braking. So these tend to be very durable, very smooth and quiet, but there's a little bit more weight than the geared motors, and there's a tiny bit of cogging. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you got it perfectly, yeah.
Okay, that's the update. There's the overview. Now we're gonna look at the display. I think this display is great because they've added a little USB port, and I think they've had that before, but now it puts out like an amp instead of 500 milliamps, so it's a little bit faster charger, and it might work with different devices. It swivels forward and back, not removable, so it's gonna take some rain and maybe some sunlight if you're parked at a rack for a long time. You sell replacements on that though, right?
Yeah, and because it's bolted on, it's also got a little bit higher level of security, but yeah, so replacements are available through our tech support team at any time.
They got these like threaded connecting so it's good stuff, and yeah, you can replace this if you need. I just want to be fair, there are displays that completely come off, so it's like, you know, on this one no one's going to be able to take it as easily, and it does swivel. I appreciate that. I'm going to hold the mode button. It's grayscale and it is backlit, so if you want to activate the lights and stuff, you hold up and mode like this. There we go, we get the little light icon. I'm trying to get this so you can see it all right. There's 5 ticks on the battery infographic, which I kind of wish there were 10 or a percentage, because 5 is like 20% steps, and there's no range readout or anything. So there's a little bit more guessing that goes into it. It's just not quite as precise, but you got that high capacity battery, it tends to go pretty far. They estimate what was like 25 to 45 miles?
Yeah, so I'm 195 pounds and I go about 25, 30 miles without pedaling at all. And if I pedal, I can extend the range.
That's awesome. That's great feedback. The odometer right there, if we press mode, it cycles up to trip distance. We got speed in the middle, pedal assist level. You can take it down to 0 and actually use just throttle. So that's cool. It's like kind of like a scooter. This is a class 2 electric bike up to 20 miles per hour, and you can completely disable the throttle, which is very nice, because then you won't bump it if you're getting on, or maybe you don't need the throttle or something. It's neat that they added that button. They do have a little, you know, this is kind of like a thumb shifter mechanism versus like trigger shifters down here, but those wouldn't fit if you still have this on-off switch. So they've made good decisions here. And while we're talking about like the drivetrain, 7 speeds, you know, there are other e-bikes that have 9 or 10 gears or even 11, but 7 is decent in this way because they've got that wide 11 to 34 tooth cassette range. So you've got the motor to help you in between gears, and then you've got a good range. It's another like efficiency, kind of a cost balancing approach that I think works very well. So coming back to the display, got the assist levels. It goes all the way up to 5, which is the highest. It's going to use energy the quickest, but it's also going to feel the zippiest, and then watts readout. You can change some settings by pressing up and down and get in the settings menu, but we'll leave that for another time. I want to call out also that the bell is really nice, and they got the rubberized grips. Those motor inhibitors that do the brake and the regen are just great. Like, it's a good setup. Why didn't you guys do hydraulic brakes, Mike?
Yeah, so easier to service. So for our end users, they're going to have the bike shipped directly to their doorstep. So being able to service it themselves, very handy option.
Yeah.
So there's advantages, just like with a direct drive hub motor. There's advantages and disadvantages to mechanical versus hydraulic.
Does it also save some money? Like, is that part of it?
Yeah. So it does help in that regard as well. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I think you hit the nail on the head, which is that bell is just incredibly helpful, because you pass a lot of other cyclists and a lot of pedestrians, because e-bikes move quickly. So.
And what Mike's talking about there a little bit, I mean, we were segueing from like the brakes to the bell. I haven't actually seen the hydraulic brake levers that have that bell.
Yeah, so I think Step-Thru has this, that's a patented feature, and I think it is currently only available on the mechanical.
So I like it. You know, we're making the best of it with a 1-year comprehensive warranty with a company that makes, you guys have really good customer support like you do. I mean, that's real. I'm trying to be real with you guys, but we're kind of celebrating here because they are a leader. They do a good job, and I've gotten to visit the office and meet a lot of the employees and talk to them and stuff. So, you know, they get my like thumbs up for sure. Should we just hop on these things and go for a little ride?
Yeah, let's go for a ride.
Did I miss anything? Any other updates? Or
comprehensive as always, Court. No, you got it, man.
Sweet. Let's do it. Hey, so we got a hill here we're gonna do a little climb on. Do just throttle, Mike. Sweet. It's making it. He's doing just fine. I'm in assist level 3 right now. I'm gonna arrow up to 5. It's nice to be able to climb something like this without having to stand up, you know? And my knee's a little bit sensitive. That's why I got into e-bikes. So it feels nice to be able to do this. And it also makes it a lot easier to stop because, you know, you got a stop sign or something, and that can really be a bummer when you're on a traditional pedal-only bike, acoustic bike. So Mike had suggested, let's turn around. We're gonna go down the hill and do the regen test. Like as soon as you activate the brakes, the brake pads don't necessarily even have to come into contact with the rotor, which saves the brake pads. But you can feel it kick in and kind of like slows you down, which I think is really cool.
And so the display does show the wattage as you're doing
Does it?
a regen event, yeah.
Oh, and check that out. The display's showing me the wattage. So it's 262. Is that the max?
Yeah. So it's sort of stabilized because the amount of power moves around quite a bit, so it's stabilized in the display.
Huh. Interesting. So you can generate the power. You can actually see it. I didn't realize that before. I hadn't really looked down. I'm always like keeping my eyes on the trail here. And my experience is that with the slightly larger tires and stuff, this bike coasts very efficiently. You can take your hands off. It's smooth. Sweet. Okay guys, from here you can see that neoprene slap guard, which is great, especially for the black frame because it's silver underneath, aluminum, and it's going to protect it. This rear rack, I didn't talk a whole lot about it, but I'm just really impressed that it has like a loop for a bungee. It's got a pannier support. It works with the Yep seats. It's well designed, and those panniers clip on really nicely if you get the rad ones. They're really water resistant. That's the motor controller, by the way, which is like a high amp, and by separating it from the battery, they're able to reduce the price of the battery and kind of simplify things. It does have 2 fuses too, so it's just really well done. We've got the 12 magnet cadence sensor up there. I'm going to be pedaling along. It's a 42 tooth sprocket with the guide, and I'll be shifting through the gears just to give you some idea, but it's completely separate from the motor. You don't have to worry about mashing or anything. You just kind of ride like you would a traditional bicycle, and then you get the extra help from this motor. It is pretty powerful. It's 750 watt continuous, but because it's a gearless motor, it doesn't necessarily like kick right from the go. It's good to have a little bit of speed or maybe a little bit of pedaling if you are climbing a really steep hill. It's working out great for me, but you know, I weigh 135 pounds, so your mileage may vary. And I love that they've got that derailleur guard because it protects the motor power cable as well as the derailleur if the bike tips, and in shipping, because you know, most of the time you'd probably buy this online unless you live near Ballard or one of the flagship stores like in Vancouver. They do have places where you can test ride this and buy it in person, but they're predominantly online right now. So anyway, here we go. I'm going to be in assist level 5 so that it's going to be the most pronounced that it ever would be, so you can hear that motor a little bit, but it's actually pretty quiet. It's just awesome. You might be able to see the suspension from here and just a little bit of riding on the trail. Lead on, Mike. definitely appreciate those fenders in Seattle. And do a little twist throttle action here. Feeling good. This is lovely, man. So I'm gonna hand you off. Mike's gonna do some filming of me on the black bike. I'm gonna do the no hands test. Seems like it's doing pretty well. Seattle is such a cool town. Mike and I were riding along, and there's all these bikes and stuff, and we're gonna do it. Check this out. There's this bike counter thing, and it shows how many people there we go, 932. Woo! That's awesome. And this cool bridge and stuff. I just thought that was fun. Oh, look, here we go. We got another right. Here we go. 933, 934. Awesome. Mike, didn't you say that Rad Power bikes like help with legislation or something in Seattle?
Yeah, so the city just approved the use of e-bikes on 5 multi-use trails.
Nice.
So that's a great progress, and for more e-bike use in the area.
935. Thank you. You guys have done a good job, and it's so neat to see how bikeable it is. Like there's a bike path down there by Google. Rock on Google. Down here. Okay, I gotta show you that. Look at this. Isn't this neat? There's so many people biking every day, even though it's a little cold sometimes and rainy, it's just wonderful. So we're riding around town doing a review for the High Step, and I just want to highlight that this one comes in those 2 different sizes and 1 color, so it's kind of the dark silver. Look at that. There's a bike. That was awesome. That they were using a bikes for delivery.
Yeah, I think that was
right.
Yeah, so there's a number of pizza delivery companies, right, that are using the Rad Cities downtown.
That was awesome. We've been seeing people all day on like the Rad wagons and stuff, but now that we're downtown, we're seeing more Rad Cities, and I thought this was kind of neat. There's this piece of infrastructure right here that Seattle's done, and it's got like a little bike icon. Look at this. There we go. Nicely done. So you can put you can hold yourself stable, and you can put your feet down. This is so cool. Seattle is just like a super cool city. And that's another example of the just some of the accessories. Those boxes would be perfect for food delivery. And like I was saying, I think a second ago we saw a bike go by and they were using it exactly for that. And that's just phenomenal. Oh yeah, track stand buddies. Lead on. Oh, if you dare. We got Corey on the Step-Thru, Mike on the High Step. Beautiful separated bike lanes. Regenerative braking. I appreciate you taking me around, doing a little tour of the city. It's been a little bit chilly this morning, but it's a lot more. There's just a feeling when you wake up and you're like, oh, I'm gonna ride my bike, and when you have the assist and stuff to help you, and you can get some gloves on and stuff. It wasn't so bad. I actually rode from the hotel this morning to meet Mike, just touring around Seattle, seeing these out in the wild. So much fun. I think that's about it. That's the RadCity Step-Thru. I also have a review on the High Step version that comes in the 2 sizes. For the full written review, all the measurements like the length, the width, the weight, all those details, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. Thanks again, man. Ride safe.